Tonight we have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. He's been charged with crime. This is a show where I try to educate real stories.
You're on.
Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Tonight, we want to talk about a hot topic in the news. I can't breathe. I'm suffocated by the injustices that I see, about the frustration that I feel about young people who are saddened about our civil rights, which have been trampled on. I've been a criminal defense lawyer for 22 years, started as a prosecutor, worked hard to become board certified in criminal law. I fight in the courts every day. When I became a lawyer in 1992, there were clear guidelines on what an officer could do and what an officer couldn't do. For example, a person who there was no reasonable suspicion or probable cause to believe that any criminal activity was afoot, an officer had no right to bother them. So if I'm a police officer and I stop someone on the street, I had to have at least a reasonable suspicion to believe that criminal activity is afoot. I'm not talking about a regular traffic ticket. I'm just saying to say, hey, you, come over here. A person, a civilian, had civil rights to just walk away unless the officer could articulate why they're after them. A person could run from the cops and say, screw you, and run off. They had that right. Now, I don't know what a person's right is. I know that lawyers are teaching seminars on know your rights, but what are your rights? A police officer believes now that if they say stop, you have to stop. And usually it's because you're a black male in a neighborhood you live in, but the police get to characterize it as a high crime neighborhood. So what is my right? Do I have a right to be left alone? Does a person who is a suspected gang member have a right to be left alone? Does a gang member have a right to affiliate and be in a gang? I mean, what are people's civil rights? And I believe that in all of this discussion that we have, we're forgetting that. We need to decide what an officer has the authority to do and when, and the officers need to be trained as to what authority they have and what they don't, and we all need to know. Yes, I agree. Young men should be polite, should be compliant, but sometimes officers do go too far, and we need clear guidelines with our police department as to what they can and cannot do. It needs to be from the mayor on down. Mayor Anise Parker in Houston needs to know what an officer can do. The city council people need to know what an officer can do, because the mayor selects the police chief. The police chief should know what an officer can do. If you see someone on the corner and you think he's in a gang, is that a crime? Do you have a right to stop him? I say no. But you tell me. I'm board certified in criminal law. I've studied criminal law exclusively for 25 years. I don't know what the law is. So one of the questions I'm going to pose to the panel after they get to breathe and they get to exhale and they get to vent like I'm venting, I'm going to ask them that before we end tonight, but I'm going to allow everyone to vent. But that's what I'm frustrated with, panel, is what are our rights? What does a person have a right to do? Do you have a right to be in a gang? Do you have a right to assemble with whom you want to? Does an officer have to see a crime in his presence or suspect you of a crime to stop you? Can a person walk away now? That was the law in 1992. Right. Now, it just seems like it's flipped for the officers. If they want to knock on your door and you answer, then they just knock. They didn't have to have a warrant. You just was silly enough to answer and let them in, right? That's what the law is for them. It used to be if they're standing somewhere where they can see something criminal, it's okay. They can stand where they want to stand, that's public domain, and you can walk away in a public domain. But I'm telling you, if I talk to any officer I know, and I have a lot of great officers that are friends and policemen, they believe that they can stop you and do whatever they want to. That is against the law and the Constitution. Does the Constitution apply to black kids, black men? Does the Constitution apply to our civil liberties? Or does it not apply anymore? What part of the Constitution has been X'd off? I need for the policemen and city council and our government to tell us. And I know we did away with a lot of it after 9/11, but I need to know what the law is. I'm going to continue to tell young men, put your hands up, have your ID and your insurance handy. I'm going to continue to tell them to be compliant, but I need to know when an officer can do what. That's my frustration. Teana, I have in the audience 3 lawyers and one of my co-hosts and favorite people, Danny Sneed, but we'll take them in order. It'll be Teana Watson, Fort Bend County lawyer, criminal defense lawyer, former Fort Bend County prosecutor. We'll have Justin Harris, great young lawyer, advocate, working very hard. He'll tell us his opinion and tell us about a new case that he has that's interesting. Danny Sneed, the encourager, St. John's United Methodist Church, friend. I'm also going to say, ex-con, he hates me to say it, but that's why we love you, because you have overcome the odds. And then we have a new guest to the studio, Randon, another young lawyer that's working hard to make a name for himself. And so we're going to get different people's opinions tonight. Teana, vent first, please.
Well, I agree. We came up at the same time, Vivian, and pretext stops. That's what it was called. Used to be an officer could not have a pretext, meaning a reason to just say, you know what, I want to stop this person because I don't like the way he looks. They now can do that. The Supreme Court said pretext stops are constitutional. And the Fourth Amendment and what we recognize as the right to be free and left alone eroded from that point on. And when that happened, people who officers felt threatened by, people who officers felt uncomfortable, people who officers felt didn't look the way they wanted to look or was suspicious, all became fair game. And now we have what we have today, this inherent distrust of the criminal justice system, because our loved ones have been picked on, have been harassed, have been arrested 3 and 4 times more than their colleagues and their friends who are engaged in the same behavior. The ACLU conducted a study in 2013 that says African Americans are arrested 3.7 times and in some counties 30 times more than their white counterparts for marijuana, and the usage is comparable, it's the same. So we know that. The protesters know that. They have friends who are doing the same things that they are doing, but they're Anglo, and they're not getting the same treatment. And our young people are not being left alone. And as a result, when incidences like Ferguson and the Eric Garner case occur, there is an inherent distrust that those cases, when it involves police officers and it involves a black male, are going to be treated differently and unfairly. And that's what we have today.
I agree, Teana. Justin, vent a little bit, please.
All right. Well, Vivian, thanks for having me on. Thanks for having this conversation. I really appreciate it. I don't even know where to start with this. I was riding over here tonight with Brandon, and I was talking to my father on the phone. He's an 80-year-old white man who was born and raised in western Louisiana. He lives in Magnolia, Texas right now. And I asked him what he thought about the Eric Garner situation. And we talked about the Ferguson case before this. And he said, I'm not going to say his proper language or his correct language because I don't want you to have to pay a fine. But he said it's an effing tragedy. And it is, or travesty, excuse me. It is. And he's referring more to the lack of indictment in the case that came out of Eric Garner. We have video of this man who was accused of selling loose cigarettes on the street corner, being taken down with an illegal hold, a choke hold, and he says 11 times on video, I cannot breathe. I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And the police officer doesn't loosen his grip, doesn't stop what he's doing, doesn't check on his well-being. it's infuriating, to be honest. If that kind of thing happens in the type of society that we like to hold up that we live in, it's, like my father said, a travesty. And I'm going to hold off on the other language he used again. But, you know, I want to kind of go off what Ms. Watson was saying. I think that's exactly right, that when you have communities and groups of people who don't feel like the law protects them, we have under the 14th Amendment the Equal Protection Clause. It says the law will be applied equally to all people. Well, if you don't have groups of people who feel like the police come to their aid, or grand juries listen to their problems, or indict people who have harmed their own family members, their neighbors, their friends, I don't know what we expect as far as an outcome or response to that, other than what we've been getting. Because, to be honest, I'm white. Someone like me gets more of a free pass than someone like Mr. Garner.
Right.
And, you know, we all work in the Harris County Courthouse. We pass people outside the courthouse every day who are selling things on the side of the street, who the police decide, and they have recently, harassed. And I'm leaving names off of this. But those people don't have to worry about the types of things, they have to worry about things that I don't have to worry about. I live downtown, I work downtown, I walk around with impunity. I know that whenever I'm walking around, because of my skin color, because of my gender, my religious background, my sexual orientation, I'm not going to get the attention that somebody like Mr. Garner is going to get. Mm-hmm. And that's not equal protection. That's not what our country was founded on. The way I see things is government was created to protect people, okay? If we go back thousands of years through human history, you had bands of families who were all kind of living in caves, and one cave would steal from another, and then those two other caves would go, you know what, they keep raiding us, let's kind of band together and form a group. Well, then things start to happen between those groups, and well, we have to create rules. Those rules become laws, and then we need someone who can settle these disputes. That's how governments get created. And those governments get created, the way I see it, to protect people. And laws create governments. So those laws are put into place to protect people. And when you have people who don't feel protected by those laws, they don't have any other outcome, any other recourse other than to take the law into their own hands. And so I feel angry by the things that happened. I see my clients every single day get indicted for things that they did that did not involve an on-camera murder. And let's be clear, the medical examiner in New York classified Eric Garner's death as a homicide.
The homicide, right?
It was a homicide. And the grand jury said, okay, we're not disagreeing that it was a homicide, but you know what? This police officer, the person who killed him, felt threatened enough that we don't think there was probable cause that a crime was committed. That does not happen.
But did they look at whether the probable cause to even mess with Mr. Gardner anyway? Because did they commit a crime in their sight? Because just to even hearsay that he's selling without seeing him selling it, and it looks like he was a big guy, but once you wrestle him to the ground, I mean, handcuff him and let him go. I mean, you had 5 officers around him. That was just murder. And I guess it's just frustrating because we keep talking about we need cameras. Hell, cameras don't help. Cameras don't help. That was a murder on camera, and it didn't help. Had it not been on camera, everybody would have said it didn't happen.
Right.
The same result would have happened if it was not a camera or a camera. And so do cameras really help? I mean, what we need is integrity. We need our Anglo partners to be honest. They need to understand that we are taxpayers. These officers work for us. Our kids are going to protest because they see that their parents, like me, are working our butts off to send them to school. We're paying taxes. We pay those damn officers' salaries, and we want them to protect us too. We're all tax-paying citizens, and so there's not a right anymore to not treat us with equal protection. We need to demand it, and the kids are still doing something that's constitutional, the right to freely assemble and protest your government. That's still the law, but I understand that some of the police officers are treating the kids like that's not the law.
Right.
But you still can do that. And so I'm frustrated because I want people to keep understanding that we are tax-paying citizens that require and need protection. So if you need to put more black officers in the black communities, you need to rotate them around maybe so there's not too much familiarity, so people know who the bad people are. Why can't we go back to prisons? Because we're afraid of people, not prisons because we don't like people. Because now that's what we've turned into, a prison system based on who we like and who we don't like. And the majority generally doesn't like the minority.
Right.
And so that becomes who you incarcerate, who you enslave. And one of my, when I first stopped being a prosecutor and was working with a very well-known defense lawyer, I kept saying, why don't he just take his time? Why didn't he just take his time? Man up and take your time in a plea bargain. And he told me something profound, and I've been saying it ever since. Y'all have all heard me say it. Man's desire is to be free, not to be enslaved by another man.
Right.
So it's easy when you are the majority to say, take your time, but you wouldn't say that if you were the minority. You wouldn't say that, like I've said before, if all of these cases were black officers killing white kids, oh, it would be a totally different situation.
Absolutely.
And the same white people that have no understanding, they'd have a totally different understanding. They'd be ready to turn this government upside down. And in fact, a lot of white people are mad and they're protesting with their black kids and followers. But anyway, I'm frustrated and I'm mad. So next we'll go to Danny.
Thank you, Vivian, for having me on again. And what I like to bring is what the incident has sparked the conversation about the lack of trust between law enforcement and the black communities, which was always there but wasn't part of the conversation. But I want to make this coalition. You had Skittles and the Arizona tea, Trayvon Martin dies. Then you went from walking in the streets with Michael Brown that sparked that incident, and he died. Then we went from there to selling Lucy's cigarettes because they passed a law that's saying that they're not taxed. But I make this argument. If I go in the store and buy a pack of cigarettes, don't I pay the tax?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you telling me if I take the cigarettes and start selling them, you're going to tax me again?
Right.
So I didn't understand that law being on the book and being enforced.
Right, and I understand your position. What the government position is, because I am the ex-accountant, is that the store bought it and paid tax, and now they're reselling it for tax. So everybody who resells has to be taxed again, and then the consumer has to be taxed. So you see, the person buying it is not being taxed, right?
Okay.
So he's now become a retailer when he buys it. This is the government's position. He's Eric Gardner became a retailer, and everybody in the chain has to pay taxes and receive taxes that they remit to the comptroller of the currency of that state. And so, but the issue is, do people die because of $5 and $6? Because Skittles, $5, not really. The other one, Michael Brown, if he stole these cigarillos, I Googled it, a pack of cigarillos at $6.50. With him, if he's selling cigarettes for $5 or $1, is that worth killing someone behind when actually all that is the city ordinance? Is it really worth you taking him off the street, spending the manpower, the jail cell, the time? That's our money. And at some point, we need to do a cost-benefit analysis as taxpayers and say, cite him, fine him, run him off on the corner every day. Should be cops in that area anyway. Run him home every day that he comes out here. If you see him start selling him, watch what he's doing. Keep surveillance, or put a camera that's on a pole or something and watch him, and just tax his butt to death. But is it worth killing him behind and taking, that man had 6 children.
It's not even worth doing sorry, Danny, it's not even worth doing what you're saying. Like, putting somebody out there every day to go hustle this guy.
Really? Somebody's paying $50,000 a year for hustling $5 cigarette?
No, I'm saying it's not worth putting a cop
police
out there to
right.
run him off every day, or putting a camera up on a pole for just that.
But it's going to be a lot cheaper than, I agree with you. I think it's stupid. But I'm just saying there was a lot less intrusive methods of controlling and policing
no doubt
cigarettes on them. I'm just saying if the police had a vested interest to police him, there was a least restrictive way of doing that by actually standing out there all day. It's 5 cops out there. They could have taken shifts one at a time and seen what's happening on this corner and videoed it or set up a stationary video to see it, have it captured, and then cite him and arrest him.
And that is what the community sees, is an overaggression. That's
Right.
what we're talking about. Even for cases where we see that someone may have had less than 2 ounces of marijuana, I've seen cars get stripped completely.
Tearing up people's cars.
Inside and out,
Yeah.
tearing it up. They smell marijuana and they end up getting a blunt, is what they call it, a joint or something like that. And they arrest them for it. And over again, it's an overaggression in the African American community. And it's what you don't see in other communities.
And you know, we don't talk about that, Teana, because our clients' cars get torn up. That can be $500 to $600 to $1,000 to $1,500 behind a damn joint. A damn joint. Really? Really?
It happens all the time.
We're paying people for this. This is our money. We should take this more personally. I take it personally. My taxes are high as hell. I take it personally. My kid, like a lot of lawyers' kids, went to public school because my property taxes are high as hell. I live in inner city. I made my tax dollars work for me. I'm insulted about it. I'm insulted. All right, we're going to take a call. Caller, thank you for calling Truth and Justice with Vivian King. What's your comment?
Hello, can't hear
You there? Did I wait too long? Brandon, what say you?
Well, it's sad because since 2000, just in 2014, 14 African Americans have been killed who were unarmed by officers. Started with Jordan Baker and ended with Rumon Brisbane just last week in Phoenix, Arizona. Mm-hmm. The cops thought he had a gun, but it was actually his pills bottle. Now, how they confused that, who knows?
And how did they feel threatened by it?
And speaking of being threatened, we talk about Eric Gardner. The cop who put the hold on him came from behind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where was the threat? It's a pattern. When my mother was in school, she learned civics. When I was in school, I took government. It's getting to the point where in high school, mandatory class, or even before that, middle school is going to have to be Fourth and Fifth Amendment. You're going to have people teaching it because...
Well, they can only teach it if they give it life again. Because if you teach it, what you learn on the book ain't what's happening in reality. So you can learn the Fourth and Fifth Amendment like we did when we were in law school, but that's not what's practiced right now because those laws have eroded since 85.
Sure.
What the United States Supreme Court says was the interpretation of people's civil rights then is not the interpretation now. In fact, the United States Supreme Court is supposed to give us guidance. They're supposed to tell us how to interpret things. And I'm telling you, I'm confused. It's whatever the police officer says because the judge is going to rule for the police officer, and then those judges are going to rule for the other judges on appeal, and the Supreme Court's going to say the same thing because those justices will never have to experience what Eric Gardner had to experience, what Michael Brown has to experience, and they don't give a damn. They don't give a damn, and these kids are not going to take this. Okay, these kids are not going to take this. We are entrusted to keep laws going. We are entrusted for the, I forget how you say that word in college, law school, stare decisis? Well, I forgot how to say it. Stare decisis, which, you know, I forgot how to say it. Stare decisis that we learned in school, which means every law builds on another law. It started from the Queen's England, in Great Britain. Now, that doesn't even matter anymore because the judges now don't care about stare decisis. Nothing builds on anything. Right. It's just whatever you want it to be because we're in charge and we do what we want to do and we make the rules as we go. So now society doesn't know. When people ask me what is the law, y'all might feel comfortable telling them. Mm-hmm. I don't. Mm-hmm. I don't know what to tell people the laws. Right. And is that a society we want to live in? And America has the audacity to go try to help other countries create laws and civil rights. We don't even know what ours are. Right. Do you?
Not really. No.
I mean, we can say what the last case says, but should our civil liberties be based on what the last case, United States Supreme Court case said yesterday? And we don't know what it's going to say tomorrow?
A lot of it falls into which county you're in, which court you're in, which prosecutor you're dealing with, which judge.
Which cop you're in front of at that moment.
So what does it boil down to? The integrity of the officer.
Right.
The integrity of the officer's superior. The integrity of the district attorney's office. And we know people have less integrity from law enforcement all the way to bankers. I mean, everybody's about me and being right. And so I'm afraid we're just going to self-destruct like that. I mean, people have to have integrity. Everybody in law enforcement just supports these bad cops. He's a bad cop. Fire his ass, pay the fine or pay the lawsuit. You know, it's our money. Pay the damn lawsuit and say I'm sorry and we won't hire anybody like that again. And we need to have racial diversity training. Now if black people say anything, and the reason why we can't talk about it is because you're race baiting if you say anything. It's reverse discrimination. We're being discriminated about. How can we, the minority, discriminate about the majority when we have no power? It's crazy, and y'all will listen to that foolishness on Rush Limbaugh, and it's foolishness. He makes $40 million a year, and you make 10,000 or 100,000 a year, and you're believing what he's saying? I mean, how the minority will never be able to control the majority, ever. And we'll always be the minority. I mean, I understand we're creating a more melting pot society, but I mean, really?
Well, unfortunately,
I'm mad tonight.
I'm with you. Unfortunately, Rush Limbaugh, and this makes me more mad, makes way more than $40,000 a year.
40
And that's
million.
that's
I said
40
40
million.
million.
Oh, I'm sorry.
said 40
that's
million a
that's
year.
probably about.
I said 40 million.
But what you said earlier when you're starting off is you said that you teach your young clients to be polite and compliant. And I'm going to assume that you're not teaching your white
Oh,
clients.
no, I don't have to teach
that.
them because they can do what they want to do.
Exactly.
I don't have to teach them that.
The officer who murdered Eric Garner was alleged, from what I've read in the articles and I've read, was taught that chokehold in the police academy.
Right, an illegal
was-
chokehold.
he
And they
was
said that,
not-
that chokehold has been illegal since the 80s.
Right, and he was not taught to be polite. He was not taught to be respectful of someone.
And why not? Because the authority figure he faces is a grand jury that'll no-bill him.
No.
So he knows that whatever he does is right. Oops,
Well,
excuse me.
and you're right. You're
I'm so
exactly right.
mad, I don't know what to do.
But you want to know why he wasn't trained that way?
What?
What's cheaper, to train someone how to do a chokehold on someone, or to train them how to have compassion for another human being? It's a lot cheaper to teach them how to make someone comply with their demands physically than to help them understand where someone's coming from or how to diffuse a situation. And that's what we need.
And what's
we need them
even
to stop
worse
worrying
is-
about money.
I'm mad at white America for buying into every big black man is a threat and a danger, because they know that all they have to do is say, I felt threatened. I felt in danger for my life. We saw the video. The man just wants to know, why are you arresting me? He's a big guy, but he didn't swing at anybody. I heard people say they saw that and saw him resisting arrest. I didn't see him resist anything. If anybody starts grabbing you and knocking you to the ground when you're a big old fat man, I mean, you're gonna wanna try to stop him from doing it. But I didn't see him haul back in his fist. I didn't see him kick anybody in the face. I mean, I would have been trying to fight him if they did that to me. And they probably would have killed me for real.
Even in our work environments, I found out when you're a black male, you have to understand the politics in the work environment. And I've always worked in office environments. And when you have a confrontation with a coworker, it's not going to play out good for you in a confrontation if they go back and say they felt threatened. So
Right.
they go get the handbook and
Right.
they fire you
Right.
because they're saying you
Threaten them. That's always the term.
But
We
the
threaten them.
person understands how it works.
Right.
If I tell
White
him,
America knows that.
if he put me in fear, I'm afraid of him.
He's a
Right.
big black man. He's
Oh,
gonna kill me.
I don't feel comfortable around him. I feel threatened. Well, Danny, we're gonna have to let you go
Right.
by policy. And they bring out the policy. She said that you threatened her. We don't have a videotape, but she said you threatened her. Well, I say I didn't. Well,
Or even she felt threatened.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well,
all she has
that's
to
the big.
feel
She has to
threatened.
feel that way.
here's right here. Here's the appeal process.
Wow.
And no, that's not gonna go anywhere because the same people in power are gonna grade that paper. So you know that's over. Just like the criminal court system.
It's the same way. You made a good point. You said she feels threatened, but a lot of times they're not intentionally going out their way to lie on you. They actually feel threatened. My third year law school, I worked at a criminal clinic. It took me 8 months to get a guy's trespassing case dismissed. At the final hearing, the DA, who had been a DA for like 2 months, said I yelled at her and screamed at her. Well, all I did was stood over and had a conversation with her. But because of my size, because of how I look, she felt threatened.
Big black
You can't
man,
do anything
you're
about
threatening.
that.
Right. You can't do
It's
anything about
unfortunate. And I got a shirt and tie on.
Right. And the thing that's sad is that I don't think white America knows black kids are scared of the police. Even the baddest ones. That's why you read police reports, he can be a capital murderer. If they're black, usually they go in without incident, right? The cops put that in the police report. We are trained to be afraid of the police. Okay, our parents were afraid. Remember, lynchings. Remember, that's our history. That's not your history. That's our history. My father was born in 1919 in a little small township in Louisiana. They saw people get lynched, okay? He was a bad dude. He would fight anybody, do anything, but when he saw the police, he was a scary man, okay? Black men are scared of the police. And so I don't care how menacing white America wants to say they are, black men are scared of the police.
I'm sorry, even before, let's even take it outside of black people. I want to meet one person when they're driving and then those lights and they get pulled
That's not
over
scared.
who doesn't initially have their heart drop. That's universal for everybody. So compound that with black people who have a history of being lynched and unfairness in the criminal justice system.
And just think of this. You think of lynching, which we didn't see, but some of our parents or grandparents told us about because they saw it. They knew people who got lynched. That's what you have to understand. My grandmother, my mother's mother, was born in 1897, okay? She lived till like 1989, I remember, and I'm born in the 50s. So, I mean, I knew her till I was 30 years old. So I'm like, they saw, I mean, her mother was a freed slave. Her you know, I mean, her grandmother, I think it was a grandmother. But that's someone she knew. She knew her grandmother, who was a freed slave. So I'm just saying, you have to understand, we right now have people who've told us about the history. And so my father saw lynching. So what black people saw with Michael Brown getting shot, we didn't see a big old black man threatening a cop. We see a lynching with him laying in the ground for 4 hours unattended, like people paraded black bodies on trees when they kill them, when the police kill them or someone, a lynch mob kills them. Michael Brown's dead body in the ground, you're not even trying to help him. He might have lived.
Sure.
And everybody's conceding to the fact.
They don't even talk about that. When I see that on TV, they don't even talk about the fact this boy was on the ground for 4 hours. That's somebody's kid.
Everybody's conceding to the fact after the grand jury report came out that he stuck his hand in the car. I still haven't accepted that fact.
I haven't. Nobody
concede to
black believes that.
We had a show on that.
Yeah, we had a show last
with
week.
it.
No,
Everybody
none of
white
us.
agrees with that. Black people do not think that man
we
stuck
do
his
not
hand.
agree.
We think the only reason why that boy came back is because the cop told him to come back.
Right.
He told him to get out of the street and come to the car, and that's what the boy
complied.
did. And he complied with that. And from there, it got out of hand.
Sure.
The boy probably said something to him. The cop said something, showed him something, and probably walked away from him or ran away, and that's when he shot him because he probably wasn't complying anymore. He left. Because, man, you don't know what that cop did. He might have showed him his gun when he brought him close to him. But we are suspicious of the cop because we know black teenagers who might steal something for $6.50 or that are unarmed are not afraid of the cop. And we are afraid of cops. You have guns, and you're young, and you're trigger happy, okay? We're scared of you.
And let me say this historically, and then we'll go to you, Danny. In the South especially, the KKK, many of the members, one of the reasons they wore white shirts is because they were members of the law enforcement.
Right.
And the white hoods over their faces. They were members of the sheriff's department. And that's
mayors
historical fact.
Right, yeah.
And also in the South, there were these unwritten laws called black codes. And black codes were used, and they knew them. They weren't on the books, but these were things that were done to keep black people in order.
In line. And
it
white
was
America didn't
used-
know about it, but we know.
And it was used mostly in the criminal justice system.
Right.
They couldn't be certain places after a certain time of night. They had curfews, and different things you did that were otherwise legal would end you up in jail if you were African American. It wasn't on the books, but it was a code, and it was enforced. And so people grew up with their parents and grandparents that fear, and them telling them that these things are,
And
I
they can
remember
wind up
driving.
dead. And we know that our people will wind up dead and the cops will cover it up and nobody will ever know. They won't even know about Michael Brown. Everybody has somebody like that in their family
Right.
that can tell you about somebody that was in hiding. I'll tell you my story one day about my aunt. I mean, we all know of people who are hiding from or got killed by the police. They were buried, they were found, and nobody said anything. And the family, the black families, they're scared to tell it because they knew then their house would be burned down, then they'd get killed.
Driving to Louisiana, you always knew once you hit Vida, after Beaumont, you better go use the restroom because we're not stopping until we hit Louisiana line because it was all bad. And you grew up knowing that. Okay, everybody out because we're not stopping in Vida. You didn't stop in those places because you knew there was a code and certain things happened and you couldn't trust law enforcement to protect you.
And what we want to do, Vivian, is to support the argument that we live in fear.
Right.
That we when we see police officers, the first thing coming to our mind is, they'll go to the popo. One time, when I was growing up in Texarkana, Texas, and I graduated like in '82, So coming up like in the 70s, we were interracial, so we really didn't see a lot of racism, but we knew police officers. We only knew a couple of them, and we had to know their names because people told us, be aware of these two officers. One of them was named, first name was Ronnie, and the other name was Willie. I won't give their last name.
Are they white officers?
They were white officers, but I don't need no trouble out of TK. But the thing about it is this, I wasn't getting into trouble, but I knew these police officers.
And you knew to stay away from them.
And when they rolled through the neighborhood and they said, there goes Willie, or there goes Ronnie.
Everybody ran.
Everybody ran.
Well, no, I'm a kid. I'm not doing anything but out here playing, but I'm
scared.
cautious.
I'm scared.
For no reason. But that fear has been told to me that you don't have to be committing a crime. But when they're around, they deserve to be respected, talked to a certain way because they had power and they weren't afraid to use it. And know that you didn't have a lot of backup from the black community because they taught us, we're not going to be able to help you.
I know, yeah, we can't help you.
My mom said, hey, if you go out there,
Sure.
We
they'll
can't help
kill
you.
you, Danny.
And they'll kill us too, so we
They'll
can't
kill
help
you.
you.
Right.
We can't help
If
you.
you buck them people, they're going to kill you.
Right,
So that's her message.
right.
I'm not going to get you a lawyer. We're not marching. We're not laying out in the streets to
Dead.
block the freeways. They're just going to kill you, and that's going to be it.
Danny, your statement was a perfect example of what is still going on. 1982 was 32 years ago. And if y'all notice, he still was afraid to say those officers' last names.
Now he's still scared.
But I'm aware.
But no, because you're aware because
Awareness.
of your background.
Yeah, I live in a real world, and if I think that the world is not real and
Right.
it's some type of, hey, these people have power.
32 years.
The black population is only 13% in America. I know that as a black male, I really don't have a lot of value across the lines. I'm not just talking about with white America. When 93% of black crimes, when black men die at 93% of hands of other black males, then the person across from me don't even see a lot of value in me. So I know what my place is in value in this country. So I try to
Let's see if we can get somebody on the line. We see a phone message. Is anyone there? Hello, hello.
I think
They must have T-Mobile.
Maybe they must have T-Mobile. They got
Sprint.
Sprint. They got T-Mobile.
That's Sprint.
Do you hear anything? Speak up.
Okay. So one thing I wanted to go off on this is I don't understand from my personal experiences, but I understand what you're saying as far as the continued history of racism and how it affects black people in this country. The flip side of that is when we want to talk about, oh, we've come so far, things have changed so much. I'm not one to judge that because I only have a frame of reference of the last 32 and almost 33 years and 16 days.
Okay.
But that history of racism gets passed along to whites also.
We know.
And whites learn to be racist
From their parents or grandparents.
My father's 80 years old. Thank God I was raised by a good man. He is not racist. He's raised me in a way that I look back on and I'm very fortunate for. Same with my mother. However, his parents were different. And his parents, if they were alive, I never met them because they would be in their 110s, 120s by now. My father's the baby of 5, actually kind of 7. And
He had you older.
he did. He was in his 50s when he had me.
Right.
That gets passed on. And we diminish that every single day whenever we say things like, we have come so far, or the black communities are too sensitive about these issues,
Right.
or they're overly sensitive. Well, you
Or
forget.
they're race baiting. That's what
Right.
they tell me. How can I? I asked the white man when he told me I was race baiting. What is that?
does that mean?
He couldn't say anything.
No, what
'Cause
does that
I don't know
mean?
what that means.
Right.
What are you talking about? I'm race baiting. I was picking a jury in Conroe last month, and I said I'm afraid of y'all because it was 72 people on the veneer panel and 2 blacks. I'm afraid of y'all because my client is black. And they were like, "You're race baiting." I said, "I'm sorry, sir. What is that? I don't know what that is. He couldn't answer.
Right.
State reality.
He couldn't answer because he heard Rush Limbaugh
He's
say
using
that.
Rush Limbaugh's $40 million term.
Yeah, he heard your $40 million term. He doesn't even know what the hell it is.
Right.
But you're telling me I'm race baiting. What is that? I don't know what it is because I haven't gotten a damn thing in life because of my race. I don't know what you're talking about. If it's something good, I want it because I didn't get it. I want to get it.
And
if it's something bad, I don't know what it is.
he's throwing the term around. He doesn't even know what it means.
He couldn't define it. They were so hostile towards me that by the grace of God, we have good men like you and like your father. Because a few of the older white gentlemen in the audience said, well, man, we're glad you're in Conroe. I apologize for him. They didn't even know him, but a few of them said, I'm sorry, do your job, whatever. So, I had about 5 people say mean things, and then I had about 3 actually stand up and say nice things that was the same age group, older, like me, and older, and they were kind to me. So I have to add that to the negativity, and that definitely made me feel better.
Well, and the other thing I want to say is, we were talking about the KKK earlier, and not stopping at certain points in Texas and Vitor, and I got a great picture of Brandon standing outside the Vitor city limits with him by a sign of Vitor city limits. But that's, what that is, under the common vernacular? That's terrorism.
It's terrorism.
Yeah.
That's terrorism.
And we feel, and that's a good thing, because black people feel, we feel terrorized. We know that if the car stopped at any moment, we might be dead.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody else is thinking that.
Yeah.
You're not thinking, you're just like pissed off because you've been inconvenienced to get a ticket.
Sure.
And it's going to cost you money, your insurance might go up. We're worried about our lives.
Right.
I got stopped in Bel Air about 2 or 3 right after Robbie Toland got killed. I was in the cleaner, I was at a cleaners, and I wasn't paying attention to the little school zone across the street, the Catholic school. So, Morgan wasn't driving yet, so she was in high school, but she wasn't driving. And so I was talking to somebody. I was talking to her on the phone or something at the school. She left something. She called me. And I leave out of the cleaners, the parking lot on Holcomb, and this car swoops around me. I'm like, oh, Lord, what did I do? I just started driving. And he gets up, ma'am, he comes to the car. You're on a cell phone. They just passed the law about no cell phones in school zones. I didn't realize it was a school across the street because I knew it was a church. I wasn't paying attention that that's a little Catholic church, school also. And so he said, don't you see the sign over there? No, I didn't. So he goes, takes my license, goes back to the car. He's gone a long, long time, okay? So I'm like, hell, I'll try to see the sign. So I get out of the car. I'm not thinking, I'm just, have nervous. I get out of the car to try to look at the sign he told me about, because I don't watch the news much. You know that if you're a good friend of mine. So I just missed that announcement on the news about that. I get out of the car. He gets on a bullhorn and scares the hell out of me. Ma'am, get back in your vehicle. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, he went crazy on me. When he got back to the car, I'm looking at him like, officer, I thought you said, did you see the sign? I was just trying to see the sign.
Yeah.
I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm a lawyer. I'm trying to get to court. It was a weekday. I said, I'm trying to get to court. I'm a lawyer. I ain't no threat. I'm not trying to say anything to you. He was so embarrassed by my reaction that he just said, I think he wore me out a warning and just let me go because I was, I'm animated anyway, but I was like, sir, look, I'm not trying to upset you. I didn't know. I mean, you told me to look, so, you took a lot of time, so I just thought I could look. I'm not threatening you. I'm a lawyer. This is what I do.
But that's the point. I got pulled over in Conroe maybe 3 months ago.
Oh, we get the phone again. Let's see if we can get it, and then we'll come back to you, Justin. Do we have someone on the line? Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
could you hear me?
Hello?
Could you hear me?
We don't hear anyone. We think they're in there in the sound room with you because we can't hear you either.
It's definitely.
You don't hear me? I can hear you. I think something's going on with your line, Vivian, tonight.
I hear him talking.
Unless you can hear me right.
The studio where you are, you, Mark, nor the caller.
Okay, you hear me. All right.
All right.
What I was saying, I got pulled over in Conroe a few months ago.
Okay, I had to cut my
somebody,
TV
and when the officer asked for my insurance, I reached over and grabbed it, and I was handing it to him, and I was shaking. and I gave it to him, and he walked away. I didn't notice I was shaking. She's like, "Why are you shaking?" And I was like, "I was shaking?" She's like, "Yeah, you were shaking when you hand." And I was like, "I cross-examine police officers for a living."
Right. And you see how they treat your client, so you were putting yourself in the position of your client.
Not even that. You cross-examine. You're a fierce defense attorney, Vivian.
Right.
I mean, you don't take
I don't take it, no.
mess from anybody.
No, I don't.
And
I can't try to
including
cuss
cops.
anymore.
But you get pulled over by a Bel Air cop, and he gets on his bull.
I'm scared to
You're
death.
just checking the law. Let me see the sign, you
Said,
know?
did you see that sign? Because that's a weird way to approach somebody anyway.
Sure.
You scolded me. I'm
No.
50-something years old. Did you see the sign? So I'm feeling stupid. I want to see the sign. But I hadn't come from that direction. I had come from like the medical center because I live by by the park, by Herman Park. So I'd come up Holcomb the long way. The sign was on the other corner, like further west. I had never gone that way. I had pulled into the strip center to the cleaners and I'd pulled out. The sign was at the corner of like Stella Link and Holcomb. I hadn't gone that far. So I was trying to see the sign. I was just going to walk and see the sign since you're taking it all day.
You know what, Vivian, you brought up something that we need to, I think, interject in this conversation. And that is, you said the officer, after he stopped you, went to his car, and we know what he did. He ran you. He ran your identifiers.
But he couldn't find anything, so he had to keep going to different databases because I hadn't had a ticket in years.
Right, of course, but this is key. We need to know that our laws have to really catch up with the technology, because it's that type of technology that is used to profile and to further give reason for the officers to aggressively attack our clients. Let me explain, and we know it. Unfortunately, many times young males may have an initial contact with police, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, and it's probably going to be marijuana or something like that. Now, police officers, and they didn't used to have this when we were DAs starting out. We know that. The technology has improved, where they can get your record almost immediately once they run your license and they get it. So they're going to see you had a prior possession of marijuana case, and it could have been 10 years ago. And they're going to use that to try to come up with some probable cause to believe you have some marijuana now to search your car. And God forbid, you've had a resistant arrest or an assault. It could have been an assault with anybody.
Here come backup.
They're going to get back up, you're dangerous.
2-3
Right.
cars
And
gonna show
so,
up.
once again, another tool that we didn't have when we were prosecutors in the early times, and again, they didn't have pretext either. They can use pretext, but another tool that is used against criminal defendants to further become aggressive, to further try to harm them or further try to prosecute them. So it's real important, the technology that is used now.
And it's real important that our police chiefs tell their officers to treat all young people the same, whether they're black or white. That's what you need to do. And that's what we need to insist upon as taxpaying citizens who pay their salaries. If you're not searching young white guys' cars, then don't search the young black guys' cars. If you are going to search the young black guys' cars, then search the young white guys' cars. Whatever your policy is, the officers need to have it across the board. That's just the bottom line. That's what I feel like. Just make it fair across the board.
Let's
it
make sure
shouldn't
we toss
matter.
in the Hispanic population, because they're on our side of the line.
Yeah, white, non-white.
Right.
That's really why the police see things.
Because I'm from San
That's all
Antonio,
it
I see the
is.
Hispanics as white, but I hear you. They have been carved out.
But the truth is, it really shouldn't matter if you had a prior on that scene for whatever he stopped you for. It really should not matter that if you had gone to prison before or you had a prior assault. But because the technology is there and they have the information, it does matter. And they are using it against our clients.
They say with Eric Gardner, there's reports that he had over 30 arrests.
Okay.
Going back
well,
to
they didn't look like they were looking at that when they were out there on that scene that night. They might have known that in their minds,
They
but
did.
why didn't they set up a different kind of surveillance and catch him in the act? Why didn't they video
They
him
had a
selling?
rapport
Why
with
didn't
each
they
other.
video him selling the
They didn't even
cigarettes?
know. And supposedly he was on bail for that charge. There's conflicting reports about, is that why they're even stopping him? I've seen a lot of
And white
videos-
America thinks that's okay, though. I still think it's not important.
It's
Yeah,
not.
it's
Why
not.
does it matter?
Why does it matter?
His
But that's why they're
wife
throwing out there.
gave an interview on CNN, and what she said,
When Don Lemon was.
right, that they knew each other.
The officer,
Everybody knew him as what? The cigarette
the
man.
cigarette
Yeah.
man.
You know, in the neighborhood, the
Right.
bootleg guys,
Bootleg.
got all this.
I know who sells cigarettes at Third Ward.
Right.
Because I used. No,
So
I ain't gonna say that. I used to-
what his problem was, people calling him, the officers bothering him when he wasn't selling them, if they ran across him a chance encounter. So if he's him and his family together, oh, hey, cigarette man, the openly disrespect he was getting tired of. But what she tried to get him to realize, change your behavior. And I want to interject this. I have a 13-year-old grandson and a 3-year-old grandson that I'll see. Back in East Texas. And this is on the solution part. I have to start having a conversation with them about their behavior. Mm-hmm. See, we can look at the news and see all the protests, but the conversation I'm having with my grandsons is about their behavior.
Right.
Not just interacting with police officers, but your behavior, period.
Right.
See, they have to tell me yes, sir, no, sir.
I know that's right.
But not all of my peers teach their kids or their grandkids that that's important. But see, that carries on beyond me. If it's yes, sir, to me, it's yes, sir, to you, no matter what your color is. So when they encounter a police officer, their response is still going to be the same.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. No, sir. You know.
And we see that with our clients. The
Sure.
one who have been taught yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, they're going to say it to whomever they talk to.
But that carries a long way. Even Trayvon Martin, when he encountered George Zimmerman, that's an adult child. Whether I'm wrong or not, I still know that when I encounter someone, I still say, hey, where you going? Where you going? Well, sir, I'm just coming back from the store.
Right.
Well, do you know? No, sir. Yes, sir. But that's something that you can instill in a child.
But we got to teach these cops to approach these kids like they are kids. And young man, I see you walking in the street. Hope you're not getting in any trouble today. Keep up the good work. Don't get in trouble. Why can't an officer say that to a kid? Why does he have to suspect that he's doing something? Even if he is, you do suspect him. What's wrong with just riding around, watching him get home, slowly, with Michael Brown, too, with the Skittles young man? Why, Trayvon, why not just watch him go home, drive, and see where he goes? Just canvass the neighborhood. Keep driving around the neighborhood. Why do you have to have an encounter with someone?
A lot of it's a social thing. How many cops do you see on the street now? They're all in a car.
Right.
Right.
That
Yeah, they don't even get out of the
changes the dynamic of everything.
And even when they're on bikes, they're racing.
And you know
they
what
raising that
Trayvon
stop
said, though, which I thought was so appropriate, because I have 2 sons and I represent a lot of young people and juveniles. You know what he told that young lady? He said, man, this is spooky dude. He following me.
Spooky dude.
He said, some spooky dude.
Right.
And you saw George Zimmerman, and
He
I mean,
does
I
look
think he looked a little
spooky.
spooky. And, that's a child's mind.
Right.
That's what he's thinking. And so this guy came up, he didn't know if this guy was going to rape him.
He didn't know what he was
This guy
going
was
to
going
do.
to kidnap him. He
Right.
didn't know what was going on.
spooky.
He said, spooky dude. He behind me. I thought that was very appropriate, actually.
It was, and
because
you have police-
He wasn't in uniform.
Right, and
Does he wanna
he
come?
wasn't even a police officer.
know.
He's a vigilante. He's a self-proclaimed,
He was a spooky dude.
self-proclaimed neighborhood
dude
spooky
that
dude.
you're supposed to whoop his butt. Because you're not taking my butt. You're not doing nothing to me. You're not going to do it. I'm going to get you before. The street teaches this.
Paul Bart
I'm going to get you
Malcott.
before you get me, okay? If
guy
you
who
come up
couldn't
on
do
me, you must want to do something to me.
Sure. And now police are driving these like ghost vehicles, right? And they're
Right.
supposedly marked patrol vehicles where they paint police in black on the side of a black car. And that's supposedly a marked patrol. I saw one parked right in front of the courthouse. I took pictures of it and posted it on Twitter, and I said, if this car pulled up behind me with its lights going, I would think this is some crazy dude who just put blue and red lights on his vehicle.
Right.
This is a black sedan. This is all this is. I'm not going to necessarily pull over for this kind of thing. If I'm not white, that may not end very well for me.
Right, right.
Even being white, I'm not sure how well that'll end for me.
Right.
But
yeah.
Vivian, I disagree with you as far as what you're saying on why can't the cops just follow them? Like, they don't even need to be doing that.
But I'm just saying, if they feel
If they-
justified in their investigation, why don't you investigate?
Sure.
That's what I'm trying to say.
But what
if you
they-
are conducting an investigation, I'm tired of officers going from contact in 10 minutes, somebody's dead. I mean, what were you chasing Trayvon Martin for? Why'd you get out of the car?
And he's not even a cop.
He's not- he's a rent-a-cop, a wannabe
He's not
cop.
even that. He's failed the police academy however many times. He decided
But at
to
least
do
they
like-
indicted him and let him go through trial.
Well, and that was after they first didn't even bring charges. They had to bring a
Right.
special prosecutor
Prosecutor.
in
Sure.
to try to go get those charges.
Which they should have did in Michael Brown.
You have too much faith in the
Absolutely.
system. Special prosecutors are the prosecutor's friends. They're the same people.
Well, I just learned a lot from around you, just how the grand jury works.
They're the same people. So we need special prosecutors that are coming from a pool to be independent thinkers.
Sure.
Okay, we can't just have an ex-DA that's now in another
It's
DA
the same
county.
thing. You're
The
just getting
same
the same
people.
thing.
You're getting the same people. I mean, it's,
Incestuous relationships.
Well,
you're still getting an incestuous relationship where that ex-prosecutor from that department has a great relationship with all the police officers. He's still working with police officers.
Sure.
Okay, he's still representing police officers. Remember, they're representing the police officers.
They go to church together.
Right, and they're representing them. I mean, if an officer pulls you over for drugs and you say that you didn't know it was in the car, the DA is going to go to court in trial supporting that police officer's position. I mean, they represent them. They say they represent the people. The police are the people, but they're woodshedding those cops, telling them what to say before they start a trial. So they're representing those people. So you can't go in and then indict those people. They're your friends. You're
They
going
call
to steal.
him my officer.
They call him my
cop.
officer. They don't say our police officers or Houston police officer. They say my
Or
cop this.
Not even the police officer. They say, my cop's going to say this in trial. My cop's going to, and it's like.
Even if it's contrary to the report, because they know that our jurors are going to allow them to get away with that bullhorn.
I want to re-emphasize what she said to the listening audience that may be formerly incarcerated, returning citizens. When an officer pulls us over for a traffic ticket, any infraction, and they ask for our driver's license, realize when they run that check, anything that's in my criminal history is going to be viewed on that screen.
That's right.
So initially, he may pull me over for
A busted tail light.
that's the tail light. So I'm sitting there all confident, like I know I ain't did anything. I don't have drugs in the car. But when he comes back, his attitude is different.
Sure, that's right.
What I need to realize is I need to understand that it done changed.
That's
The
right.
game is changed.
The game has changed.
It's no longer about the busted
and they're
tail
gonna
light.
try
That's
to
exactly
arrest
right.
you. And understand two other points. Let me throw this in. We have 3 minutes. I'm gonna let you say something next, Brandon. So think about it. But let me just say this. However many people have gotten tickets on that driver's license comes up too. All the activity on that license plate comes up. So if you're recently reentering society and you using, your drug dealing brother's car, they're gonna know all the times he's been stopped for traffic tickets. He might have a general description that looks like you. He might have outstanding tickets. I mean, he might have been arrested 10 times by that same cop. They know what happened not only with your driver's license history, your criminal record, they know the history
Vehicle.
of that vehicle and how many
Vehicle.
times it's been stopped. And so they're looking at that. So that's why you need to drive clean, get a ride, and you can never be a fugitive from justice. What our clients don't understand is if you have, 2 or 3 unpaid traffic tickets and you have a warrant, you're a fugitive from justice just like a capital murder person that's in hiding. You have no civil rights anywhere. Your civil rights are gone if you have a traffic violation. So if you got a traffic violation and you want to be left alone, you better go sit it out this weekend. Sit it out this weekend, because if you're driving a car and you have a warrant, you have no rights. They don't have to say they smell marijuana. They might just do that. They can arrest you because you are a fugitive from justice. And so, you can't be a fugitive.
Don't sit it out. Call Vivian.
Yeah,
Don't sit it out.
Call me. I'm not a traffic ticket lawyer, so he's teasing when he says call me, because I don't
she
do
can
traffic
refer to somebody who might
Brandon
need the
Ball.
money.
But to your point, even going a little bit further into Danny's point, the reason that's important is because it's about understanding demeanor. Okay, so now they're looking at my criminal history, so I need it. And to say it differently, imagine you're in a relationship and you get caught cheating and your person takes you back. You know you're on thin ice.
Right.
You know you can't just yell like you used to or stay out like you used to. Just understand the situation.
Especially with that woman.
Understand
and
the
your
scope.
call ID. Gonna
Understand the scope so that the police are judging you based off what you've done previously.
Your behavior, yeah.
But I want to say this last point. I saw a picture, a cartoon on Facebook, and they had a teacher talking to little kids, kindergartners, and she was asking them, what do you want to be when you grow up? They had a white kid that said doctor, another kid that said a lawyer, and a black kid rose his hand. He said, I want to survive.
Alive.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh,
And that's so real because
Yeah.
there's a new phrase that's going to come out of this situation with the Gardner and with Michael Brown really exploding it. And people are going to start, you're going to start hearing people now say, I survived the police encounter. That never was in our,
I
That's right.
survived. That's
That's
powerful.
right.
That's powerful.
that's where it is
survived.
now.
Yeah.
That's the mindset
Well,
you have to have.
That's what's being taught to young black people.
Right.
It's not being taught to white people,
Survive.
young, middle, or old. I mean,
No.
it's
No.
don't comply, talk respectfully. I've yelled at cops before who pulled me over.
Please. A black kid cannot yell at a person. We know that. We know that. You cannot do it.
And I was 18 years old, and I yelled at this cop who pulled
We're
me.
amazed. If you ever see Dave Chappelle has a skit on that on what his white counterpart got stopped and what he gets away with, where he never get away with. You've got to Google it or see it. It's good. I'm getting the notice to wrap up. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope you learned something. I'm sorry I'm so excited and animated tonight. I'm frustrated. I'm suffocated.
I can't breathe.
I can't breathe.
Can't breathe.
All
I
right.
can't breathe.
Hands
Hands
up.
Hands up. Don't shoot.
Hands up.
Hands
Don't
up.
shoot.
Don't shoot.
Don't shoot.
Don't shoot.
Don't
Get those
shoot.
hands up.
No,
Don't
it's-
shoot.
Don't shoot.
Don't
All
shoot.
right. Thank you for tuning in again. Tonight we have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. He's been charged with crime. This is a show where I try to educate to the show.